ready? All right, good evening to everyone. Whoops. Call the Mount Vernon Council meeting to order. Good evening to everyone. Well, I'm all backwards. Call the September 4th, 2018 council meeting to order. Not aware of any changes to the agenda we have in front of us.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, communications. Is there anybody that would like to address the council? If so, please come forward. Name and address, please.
Jay Delancey, 509 Scobie Road. Most all of you know I've been up here before about the fire station. Well, Stephanie's new, Stephanie wasn't aware of it. So I just wanted to refresh people's minds since nothing's happened with it. Nobody stepped up to buy it or talk of doing something else with it. So I still wanted to bring up, I thought it'd be a good, I don't really want to call it a community building, but I guess a type of community building where I'd like it for these groups, if they can get together and iron this out, the Legion, the Sons, the VFW, the Women's Auxiliary, the Lions Club, the Girl Scouts, and the Boy Scouts all share that building. And use it as fundraiser and just do something with it and make it, beautify it in the front. And I thought put some type of memorial maybe even in the front to have candlelight vigils for either cancer, firemen, or policemen, or military folks. And then I wanted to do like a sports trading type thing inside of it where, say the VFW women, or the Women's Auxiliary women, because women always like children, and have, say, like a 4th grader going to a 5th grader, but you have to bring something in trade. So that we can maybe do this with our community, Lisbon's community, and I thought even maybe reach out to Springville and Mechanicsville and get them involved in it too, where they could trade and barter for equipment to get the burden off the parents and the taxpayer in the school, and just help repurpose stuff and keep, you know, good athletic equipment going around to all the children to share and stuff. Then I think that's all I have on that, but that's what I was thinking. If we got all those, what do you call it, entities together, those groups, that there would hopefully always be somebody in the group that could fix the door handle, the furnace, so there wouldn't be a lot of overhead costs. But I really don't know how to get this rocking and rolling without throwing a wad of cash at it, which I don't have yet. But I've been playing the lottery, but it hasn't come through yet. So then the second thing I wanted to talk about, this is me as an individual, as a veteran, and I've ran it by with some of the Sons of the American Legion. Is it possible, where do we go about, can we put some type of memorial up at Memorial Park? We were thinking of doing the leaning soldier over the cross with the boots and the gun and the hat. And we were trying to figure out if we could get it made out of cement or bronze. Where do we start? Who do we need to talk to? And we don't really want to do a fundraising. We would like to do it by recycling metals and show that that can be accomplished. But it might take us a couple years to get the money completely rounded up and stuff. So does anybody have any ideas?
Parks and Rec Board.
So go to one of their meetings then and bring this up? Or
You can start with Matt.
and just talk to him? Is there paperwork to be filled out? Or?
No, not necessarily, but attending one of their meetings and floating the idea with them would be the first place.
Okay. And most of you know that I do recycling. I've been doing it for 7 years. I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of getting a little burned out on it because I keep getting in trouble with it. And I would like to know, is it possible, once you guys get the 8.5 acres ironed out, could there be a half an acre set off where the Sons of the American Legion or a group, an entity, could utilize that area for recycle tubs and sort stuff and process? You know, I'm not saying let's stack junk cars and refrigerators, but small items. And use that, but I know it won't happen overnight, but like in a couple years, could it happen, you think, possibly too? And who do I go to try and get that to get started? And this is mostly on me, this ain't on them. Nobody knows, because I feel you guys are the leaders, so that's why I'm coming to you guys.
You can start with Nick. We haven't really even started laying out the property yet.
I figured it'd be a couple of years.
Yeah, we won't get, well, technically won't get the property until March. So we'll start laying things out and
But I wanted to get it in your mindset so that if it is an eyesore to people, we could find the farthest corner to less offend anybody and then out of sight, out of mind, get what I'm saying? Because I know you already talked about planting trees for buffers and all that, and what else we might have to do if we go that route. Because I think recycling is becoming a big deal, and I have a feeling eventually America will step up with Europe and start playing the same game they're playing and stuff, so that's the three things I got. And Jamie, last council meeting, I wanted to say to you, we did get a letter from Alliant Energy about changing the meters, and I think we got a text or an email. I tried finding it.
I haven't, I never.
I'm just saying that, but there was no, when they were coming and what day,
Yep,
but
yep.
they were gonna be doing it.
All right,
Does anybody know what happened yesterday too, why we lost internet, phone, nothing?
Anybody else?
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate the ideas.
I heard good.
No one else? All right, we'll move on to consent agenda. Approval of council minutes, August 20th, 2018. Appoint Tom Wieseler, Mayor Pro-Tem, and appoint Sandra Fleckenstein to Parks and Rec Board.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I would second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks to Tom and Sandra for that. Next item, ordinance approval, ordinance 86-2018A, an ordinance amending the code of ordinances of the city of Mount Vernon, Iowa by adding a new subsection, chapter 92.11, reduction in bills for water and sewer service. Chris?
nothing additional, no correspondence or
So obviously first and final reading, no other, nothing new to share from prior readings.
I'll make a motion to approve the third and final reading on ordinance 8-6-2018A then.
I would second.
Comments? No comments, roll call please, Sue.
Wieseler,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Rodebush,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Nice work on that overall, Chris and team. Next item, resolutions for approval, resolution 94-2018A, setting public hearing and bid date for the 5th Avenue and First Street West Traffic Signal Installation Project. Chris?
This is going to be somewhat of an odd project. There's some lead time in the ordering of the equipment, so we're setting dates, taking bids now. Project won't actually start under construction until June. And the reason obviously for that is it's heavily used during the school year. We do not want to remove their safe crossing while they're still in session. So this does allow, like, as I said, does allow us to get it ordered, get the bids approved, show the DOT that we're moving forward with the project, and then have everything ready to go. So there should be zero downtime unless weather come June.
When we take bids this far out, I mean, material costs go up, down, I mean, they fluctuate. Are there?
They'll actually
huge
order
rates?
now.
Oh,
As
okay.
soon as the bids are approved by the council, they'll order the equipment
Okay.
immediately. So the only thing that they're really playing with at that point is their labor,
Okay.
which shouldn't.
I was gonna say it's relatively
significant, you know.
Okay. And then the other question, if we look at the schedule that V&K provided, it's got a full 2 months for the project. Is that, I mean, are we cushioning there, or is that what they actually?
Probably cushioning a little bit, but there's a lot of wiring that has to be done and then programming for the light itself.
Are we projecting that intersection to be shut down for 2 months?
No.
Okay.
I will say those of us that have to come on Fifth might have to use an alternative route,
Yeah.
because it's very likely that either side of First would have to be shut down at various times. But if you remember, we got waivers from the DOT as far as ADA compliance, so the hope is that we wouldn't have the entire intersection closed for very long at any given time.
Gotcha. Okay.
What's the amount of the grant that we're getting?
It's roughly 50,000, 56,000 something.
withdraw.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I move that we set the public hearing date of September 17th and the bid date for September 27th based on the proposed schedule.
Second.
Any comments? No comments, roll call please, Sue.
Brownbush.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Wieseler.
Yes.
Next item, resolution 94-2018B, approving the Department of Transportation Street Finance Report for fiscal year 2018.
This is a report that we do annually. Basically, we have to show the DOT what we collected in road use tax, what we spent on a road use tax, if we borrowed any money for road use projects, and how that money got spent. So this is an annual report that goes to the state. This year, we received just under $575,000 in road use tax funds. We increased, that was about a $14,000 increase. Road use tax tends to increase based upon two things. One, whether or not people are driving, and two, the population based upon the census of the community. So we should see another potential uptick after the 2020 census is complete. We'll probably see some minor increases / decreases based upon driving miles and gas prices in the future. Just one other point, that 2014 bond issuance that we have is helping to pay for the 5th and 1st Street intersection improvements. It's paying for the bridge repairs to the bridge on Mount Vernon Road over the railroad tracks. And then we're reserving monies for the Lincoln Pass. Hopefully that will be enough. Hopefully.
Anybody have any questions for Chris?
So this resolution is just accepting this report, right?
Correct.
In that case, I would move resolution 9/4/2018B.
Second.
Comments? No comments, roll call please, Sue.
Rose.
Yes.
Wieseler.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Brownbush.
Yes.
All right, next item, motions for approval, consideration of claims list. So I'm hot off the presses in front of us as well.
I just had a question regarding the claims. I think it's, I guess, more about the secondary, the additional set of claims. There was several charges from, rather than, yeah, there it is, thank you,
Yes.
Eric. Wapsie Waste, why do we have so many different lists?
So the story is, so I met with Dave from Wieseler Waste this week, in which he handed me a stack of recycling claims. His son handles waste disposal in the Marshalltown area, and he was helping him, so he was behind on his billing.
Oh.
They're all legitimate claims. Typically, we don't get 6 recycling
Yeah,
tickets
I just,
at once.
that looked odd to me. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the additional claims, or all the claims for, that were set up for this meeting. Payment.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and consideration of pay application number 1, Avery Construction, Mount Vernon Road, Culvert. Chris?
This is likely one of 2 pay applications. $46,083.45 is this amount. The second pay application will likely be the retainage, so the project is done. Mount Vernon Road is open, and my phone has stopped ringing.
All good
And it
things.
closed with one change order only.
One change order, $3,800.
And that was the unexpected slab of concrete underneath,
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
the road underneath the road.
Right, okay. I've heard nothing but good things about, I mean, obviously, yes, there were complaints about what's going on in the signage and whatnot, but I thought especially with finding a whole second road, they got done well within what we had expected, so,
It only delayed them a day,
yeah.
really,
And,
and they were given 3 weeks and took 2, so.
Yep.
Yep,
That's great.
And to have the signage out there warning people that it was
Yeah.
coming within like a week's time, I mean, that was really,
Yeah, I think the other thing too, because we will have issues, obviously, when we look at the wagon pass.
yeah.
That's
That'll
obviously
be
going to
different.
close Mount Vernon Road for a significantly long time. It will probably route traffic down Scrubby Road, which Scrubby Road is not used to handling. So we'll continue to look at that, but we don't have a solution quite yet worked out with Bowers. So we will start working on that. Would probably be a project that starts maybe next spring, summer. So there will be another situation where the signage will be out weeks ahead of time forewarning individuals.
Yeah.
and is there any possibility of lining that up with the bridge work at the same time? So that we can reduce the number of times?
Possible depending on what we decide with the wagon pass, I
Sure,
guess.
yeah, I suppose there's a lot of variables, but yeah, if we can somehow factor those together, that would be.
Yeah, I would love to get the 2 projects
Right.
done at the same time,
Mhm.
and just be done with it.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm glad that it went so well with a new contractor that I never heard of, to
Yeah.
be honest with you, and
Did really good work.
Yep.
be on target.
Worked
More
with
competition,
the
better.
landowner as well. Reduced the rip wrap and then shaped the ditch the way that they wanted, so.
Entertain a motion for the pay application.
I would move approval of the first pay application for the culvert replacement on Mount Vernon Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion consideration of a indemnity agreement, agreement between the city of Mount Vernon and the Mount Vernon School District. Chris?
So this is actually really a fairly basic agreement. It just kind of spells out that you're in charge of your stuff, we're in charge of our stuff. Should we damage each other's things, we agree to pay for it. But if you remember correctly, the school had constructed the tennis courts across the line at a property that's owned jointly by the city and school.
Remind me again how much onto our property?
Half of the
Half of the
courts.
court.
The southern 3 courts, basically.
You can see.
Just do it.
You can see the map. We laughed about it, obviously, when it happened, but as you can see, the city's going to end up using more of that property with the detention basin and geothermal well field. So you won't visually see, obviously, our well field. You will see the contours of the detention basin. The detention basin looks long and the property is needed because they're trying to stay out of the drainage channel that actually flows, would be just to the north of where that basin is at. So I think Greg and I have talked, and it just makes a lot of sense. Neither one of us foresee any future development on the lot that's jointly owned. It's just not designed for it, and then you got a waterway that runs right through the middle of it. So again, it's a fairly basic agreement, just having something on the books so that says we indemnify each other, we felt was important.
Yep. Any questions? Otherwise, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the indemnity agreement between the city of Mount Vernon and Mount Vernon School Districts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion item is the chicken ordinance. Chris?
So at the last meeting, there was proposed language changes submitted to the city council in which the staff said they would have the city attorney review. The city attorney has reviewed. I provided kind of a report, a synopsis of the findings. There are basically 4 changes kind of proposed in the language. two that the attorney recommended against. One was changing chicken to poultry, and it was only because it broadened the spectrum of what could be allowed, so he wants to keep that chicken. And then changing the word premise to coop or pen. He thought actually shrunk our ability too far. So one of the things that we talked about with premise is possibly adding the word exterior, because the chicken coop is by design supposed to be outside. So if they keep it inside, that's really on them. Yes, we don't care. So we could add the word exterior to premise and define it better in that regards. The two changes that both staff and the attorney had talked about as far as supporting would be changing city or its agents to city administrator or his/her designee. This is actually standard language throughout the code, especially in the zoning code, so it would be somewhat consistent with the rest of the code if we did make that change. The designee portion was not represented in Mrs. Meyer's report, but I almost always have the designee in there simply because I'm not physically going to go out, but on each of these, so hopefully that will be okay. And then we haven't really specified language as far as notice. Mrs. Meyer and I did speak before the council meeting, and I do believe that we could introduce language that discusses making contact with the owner, or at least knocking on the door, showing city-issued ID prior to the inspection occurring. And the example that I used, and we've had this happen before, is we've had complaints of chickens running at large. I'm not going to call the homeowner and let them know that I'm on my way to see if their chickens are running at large. So I believe we can come up with some language. Wasn't exactly comfortable with what was provided, but the city attorney did feel like we could come up with something that would maybe ease everybody's minds, especially with what's been going on in the press as of late. So those are the four major changes that I saw as part of what was submitted. I don't know if you had anything additional.
Yes, yes, please.
Again, my name is Christine Meyer. I think the one thing with the poultry versus chicken, the poultry, I didn't change that. That was actually what is on the permit right now. It says poultry.
Yeah,
it's in the part that you sign, and so so I don't know that that's to me that either one front me. But just to clarify, so that as you're looking at, you know what you're looking at. Right now, the permit does say poultry, and the ordinance says chicken, and so that's a miscommunication I think between your permit application and the ordinance. As far as the designee part, I think the only concern for that is just not knowing who that person might be, and does that still mean that it could be you know, the lifeguard from the pool, it could be your neighbor, you know, it could be anybody. I think the wanting to clarify that is to make sure it's someone that's had the proper screening, that is someone that would make other people feel safe that they're coming, that there's, you know, that, if that makes sense. I think that's where knowing that it's the city administrator or, you know, whoever that other person might be, having a better idea, or also the idea that you know, these ordinances are supposed to last, you know, for a long time beyond the life of, you know, at least the life of you as a city administrator in, you know, not your life, but your span. And so, you know, trying to think through not knowing who that city administrator might designate to and not knowing their type. So trying to think through the screening part of it, or that safety issue of who's actually allowed to come onto someone's property in that regard. And so thinking of what they're, what's making them the right person for that. I think as far as the exterior, I think that would definitely help to be a little more clear, because right now it's just so broad. It's not saying whether it's inside, outside, in the garage, any of that. And then I agree with the notice, and I think sort of what you said, I think the notice part of it isn't, in my mind, the word notice doesn't mean you have to call ahead of time, doesn't mean you have to give a week notice or a half hour, it's notifying, it's ringing the doorbell, knocking on the door. So you know that there is someone on your property, and I think that's the part that, as far as that, and choosing the right language for that, I think, I agree that if you're, you want to be able to protect, and you don't want to give them a half-hour notice if that's what's gonna, you're not gonna be able to get what you need, but we also have to protect our citizens, and I think that the ordinance the way it is, and and I think that that's sort of what I've tried to say in the past too, that I feel that in its current form, it's vague and puts the residents of Mount Vernon at risk, and I really think that this is easy changes to make in order to make our residents feel safe.
So really, as a discussion item, I think we're fairly close.
I think the only other thing that you did not bring up was the talking about which conditions, and that's the other part that was underlined in some of my suggestions was, it says to address the conditions, but it doesn't say which conditions. And the rest of the ordinance does a really nice job of laying out, these are the conditions, A through N, this is what someone needs to do, like you can only have 6 chickens, you can't have a rooster, you can't, there's all these different rules, and so just adding that in as, that it's A through N or whatever to.
That was another change that the attorney was okay with. Apologies.
Okay, no, that's fine, I just wanted to make sure.
So my thought is basically the question now is in front of the council, if you're supportive of making changes to the ordinance, all we need to know from a staff perspective is that you are. And what we will do is come up with kind of our best draft of an ordinance that you would consider for reading one. Reminder that you can change that all the way up to the 3rd reading. So if we do start down this path, there's still ways to make changes as you're going through the process and under consideration. So basically all I'm looking for is whether or not you support making changes to the ordinance.
My reply is yes, listening to, the items that are listed here, listening to our council. I'm confident that, the city administrator is not going to just send anybody on the city payroll out there. That quote, that phrase, city administrator or something designee is fine enough for me, that without getting too definite.
And I feel that if we do add the point of the necessity of them showing identification, that also works.
Yeah, that's true.
You're not going to designate anyone, but that person's going to.
No, I mean, honestly, likely when it comes down to who would be designated, who would be coming out, if it's not a police officer, it'll either be myself or the zoning administrator, which we now have a designated zoning administrator, so. But like I said, we can take a look at the language. What will get submitted now would be an ordinance that will propose those changes, and then there's 3 readings that they would go through as far as consideration, and as I said, especially through the first 2, if there's minor changes to the ordinance language as we're going through, that can be made at that time as well.
Chris, will this likely be a snowball in terms of, will we change a lot of our other ordinances? Are we going to require knocking on doors and showing identification and doing all that stuff for all of our other ones as well? In terms of being consistent?
I don't believe so, in that the chicken ordinance in itself is already, you've already cracked that door open, I guess I'll say, because you disallow ag-related animals, farm animals in the community, but you cracked it open to allow chickens. So I think it would be designated specifically to this ordinance. As far as
What if we're allowing somebody, you or somebody, to walk onto our property? Are we going to require them every time, whether it's chicken ordinance or some other?
No, so I guess I'll use this as an example, and it's probably a bad example, but if the officers drive by and happen to see something going on in the exterior of a property, that's considered cause.
Right.
And they no longer need a warrant. If I drive by your house, or the zoning administrator drives by your house after receiving a complaint on a nuisance issue, that opens that door and has actually already been proved in court. This is kind of a specific item to just the chicken ordinance, so I don't believe you're going to see movement. The bigger thing with some of the other ones is making sure that everybody receives due process.
I was wondering if we needed to be proactive and change them all, but if not, then that's fine.
I don't believe so. Everything's going to be slightly different. And then there's different sections of the code where we designate different officials.
I got one question though. Let's say the official comes, knocks on the door, nobody's home. Do you inspect or you leave? Because now there's nobody saying that they're there and maybe they didn't hear you, they're down.
We still have the ability.
Okay.
We still have the ability to knock on the door. In most cases, we can actually see without going to the backyard. To be quite honest with you, if it's gated off, we see a dog, we don't typically go back there anyway. 9 times out of 10, we're able to see what we need to see from the street, from an alley right away, something, especially in Mount Vernon. We have alley right of ways all over the community, so we're able to see quite a bit of what we need to already. Unless it's a health hazard, so if it's constitutes an immediate danger to health, we can call the cops into the property at that point, and usually that's what we'll do. Most of the nuisances that we deal with are not considered life safety issues, immediate life safety issues, so if we have to leave and come back, a lot of times it's easier for us to knock on the door and have that conversation anyway, just because we can hopefully get it resolved before we start going through a bunch of paperwork. But there's a lot of scenarios to play through. Like I said, it depends on the severity of what we're actually out there looking for.
I'll just recommend if you have any other questions, just reach out to Chris over the next few days or whatever.
Christie, thanks for the suggestions. It's one thing sometimes for people to come up and have a complaint, but I do appreciate that you bring some suggestions, so thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to come. Thank you.
Anything else on the chick ordinance?
I think she does make a good point, Chris, about the language on the permit itself.
Yeah.
So whatever we end up doing, we just need to look at that and make it consistent.
Correct.
Nobody wants that.
How appropriate there.
Trust me.
Yeah. All right, anything else on the chick ordinance? No? All right, next item, mayor's report. Not much other than just a little recognition and embarrassment for Chris in terms of earning the credentialed manager designation from the ICMA. So I think that's a job very well done. I sent him a note of congratulations, and the first thing he asked was how I found out. I told him, just the way mayors work, we know stuff. So congratulations to Chris.
Yeah.
Another plaque to hang in his office or in the his home. Anything you want to speak to that on, Chris?
No.
Nice work.
That's what you get for making me wait 6 o'clock tonight. Council reports, committee reports, anything from anybody?
I want to bring up some, did we just get one person to run for the council, right?
That's my understanding from the Lynn County Auditor. I have not received the ballot yet.
Because if that is so, as a council, could we, I mean, if one person's in,
They're gonna be write-ins.
it's highly unlikely they're going to be write-ins that'll take them up. So could the council put that person in for the rest up to election, and then it'd be officially done through the election? I mean, that way we'd be at full strength again. I mean, if that person is going to, I mean, like I said, the chances of a write-in dethroning whoever it is, it's highly unlikely, so.
I don't believe so. The reason for that is I believe you have 10 days in which to make a decision, 10 days from the resignation to make a decision as to what you planned on doing. So if you wanted to, you could appoint and still have the election, but you would have had to appoint first, and then still move forward with having the election. So I will say this, I did reach out to Deb by email today, and we'll be sending as much of the correspondence that you receive that's not confidential to her from this point on. But even if you went through that process, They'd be here for 2 meetings, which is,
Yeah,
granted, more than what they
You're down to
would.
3 and you're worried if some, you get 2 in here and you're worried if 2 more, or at least 1 more is gonna
Well,
come in at the last minute,
So is
we
the
also have
election
control of the agenda.
that first Tuesday of November like it always is? So the 6th, okay.
And then we'll have to wait until the votes are canvassed. Once the votes are canvassed, she can take the oath of office and be seated immediately.
Immediately, okay. So theoretically, I mean, assuming nothing weird happens with the election, that second meeting in November.
Yes, I have witnessed in my lifetime one write-in campaign that actually was successful, but you have to be extremely organized.
Yeah.
Very much.
Okay, so really, we're looking at 1 more September, 2 October,
Correct.
November,
Right.
okay, yeah. No, I mean, your point is well taken, and it's a good idea, and I'm kind of.
Be nice
to
to do
that, actually.
Oh, we're gonna have more interest, quite honestly.
Yeah, I do too.
Mount Vernon has had an election for 3, on the school board, for 3 candidates ran for 3 spots, and a write-in no one knew about was able to bump one of the incumbents out. It was not a situation, and it was Steve Mintler of all people, it was not a situation where they're filling in a couple of months like this situation is, but that has happened in Mount Vernon.
Okay. Any other questions? Chris, city administrator report?
I'll reserve questions to Doug, because he's the president of Mount Vernon-Lisbon Ambulance Service, but just wanted to report that they did make a hire, Jacob Lindauer. He had been working part-time for the service, interviewed quite well. The mayor and I both sat on the interview committee, and I don't think they could have gone wrong with either candidate, but excited to have Jacob on board, and I think Doug is as well, just in time for him to go on vacation, so. I was actually able to meet with Wapsie Waste, Dave from Wapsie Waste Services this last week. I've been waiting for him to reach back to me so we get the extension. It wasn't, I shouldn't say a huge concern on my part, because if he wants any changes to the contract, he would have to initiate it, so everything stays the same. Right now, there's no retroactive fees, so we've been paying Wapsie the same that we have for the past year. I can tell you, and we'll talk about this at the next council meeting, talking about a quarter increase on residential, which unfortunately would require us to increase tags. We were able to take on the 75-cent increase prior to, but that final 25 cents is just more than we can handle, and we start going backwards the other direction. So we'll talk about that more next week. And then how you will be out of the office September 20th and 21st for personal reasons. And then I will actually be traveling to Baltimore until the following Thursday for the ICMA National Conference. Sue will be in charge, and I've instructed everybody to kind of run things through her. If I see that she calls me, then I'll know it's kind of an emergency, and it seems to work best instead of getting multiple calls from people. Other than that, next week, our next council meeting is a little busier than this one.
It may be too soon to ask, but Lisbon, they dropped the tags, if I remember correctly, just a month ago or so, the garbage tags, and I don't know if Connie Meyer has an opinion about that yet, or if we've had enough experience with that, but I'd be curious to see how that goes, as we talk about waste and so on. And one thing in the mayor's report that he did pass on to me, monarch butterfly, I need to do some information about that to get us accredited with that group again, so I'll get that back.
Anybody else have anything to share? No further business, meeting stands adjourned.